Okay, we're back. We're continuing with the van der Schhyff essay. And I just want to touch back to the last video on the points with law, the way we're understanding law in general, and also the way in which we're understanding positive science as well. And then also the deeper point that van der Schhyff is wanting us to examine has to do with this idea that the way in which positive science understands Aristotle, or the way in which a positive scientist understands Aristotle, would be in the context of thinking that laws of nature, such as the laws of gravity or the boiling point of water, or such laws that were established in the scientific revolution, established as ways in which nature is understood as well, that natural science then becomes positive science, and that positive science in and of itself is limited even in its law-like way. So that's the interesting thing, is I think that yes, the importance is on reason, okay, which what we're thinking of for reason is that it's law-like, okay. If we're thinking that it's law-like, we're also seeing that it also has limitations still that maybe are beyond those laws that we usually ascribe to the end-all, be-all of how it is that we understand things. Something like that. So then we want to continue here with the subchapter form and the principle of movement. Okay, so even if Aristotle is an empiricist, he is not so as with Hume or Mill, who we'll look at later. So with Hume was a strict empiricist to the degree that he was actually wanting to downplay the role of reason in his understanding of things, okay, in his empiricism, okay. So he was a radical empiricist, whereas with Aristotle actually is taking components of reasoning which run first and foremost for Aristotle and driving everything out from there to the degree that the natural world is understood by way of reason, and likewise our ethical lives are understood by way of reason. And so his empiricism must always be understood in regard to rational consideration running ahead and first and foremost in light of the empirical way in which we know things. Okay, so I'm thinking of it as a perfect combo of rationalism and empiricism, interestingly enough, in the ancient world. So even while acknowledging and working with the pre-Socratics like Thales or Heraclitus, so in other words, the debt of gratitude Aristotle has to the pre-Socratics is this elemental way in which they were understanding, and likewise materialistic way. So with Thales is known as the first philosopher. His claim was that everything was water. Everything could be based on its origin could be based in water. Okay, and then Heraclitus, we might know, also claimed that everything is fire. So everything has its origin, or can trace its origin back to some kind of fire origin. And so we see those two elements as basing our understanding of things on this materialistic component that becomes important back again to positive science, and then also maybe a point that van der Schhyff is calling into question in our understanding now of Aristotle. Okay, so also we could think of the parallel of Epicurus as well, who was an atomist. He thought that everything was composed of atoms. So therein also is this way that when we're thinking of science empirically, we need to be careful of what we're cutting out there, might also. So when we're thinking of science in a strictly empirical way, we might want to be careful of what we're cutting out, because we might be cutting out these other elements, and we'll look at that here. But also see that Aristotle's view of knowledge then is what we understand to be hylomorphic. So when it's hylomorphic, that really means the perfect combination or the interdependency of matter and form. So this interdependency of matter and form also is something that then goes beyond Plato, in the sense that Plato's sense of forms was transcendent and likewise idealistic. So a form for Plato is something that is akin to what Aristotle terms one of the four causes. So in other words, understanding the form of something is understanding its ideal understanding, so its perfect sense. So in other words, how it's understood as a plan, for example, might be another way of thinking about it. But yet we'll see that Aristotle goes beyond this type of way of thinking about causes, this transcendent, idealistic way. Okay, so that's something that Aristotle moves away from, is this type of Platonic idealism, right? So Aristotle was more about heterogeneous forms residing in something's being, okay, something's aim. What something is perceived and experienced as is also its purpose, right? So essentially, so in other words, that gets us back to thinking about metaphysics, for example. To understand what something is likewise to understand what it is essentially, right? So then we get to our sense of how it is that we're grasping the relationship of matter, form, and purpose for Aristotle, according to van der Schyff, right? So a good starting point is with a distinction between things that exist by nature and the things that exist other and or for artificial reasons. So these are Aristotelian distinctions of how we're understanding something's nature. Okay, so so like a tree grows and fosters other trees, could be its form of a tree. The form of a table is for us to ride upon it, and likewise eat on the table, etc., right? But yet that table's form doesn't include bringing about other trees or bringing about baby tables. That, in other words, its form is that to eat on, or to do our homework on, or to play checkers on, or to set our laptop on, right? And then so nature is a thing that has within it a principle of motion and rest. Okay, so which is innate, which is the innate principle of change and moving from states of potentiality to actuality. Okay, so then we move to nature into the artificial, yet we are naturally and rationally moving toward an aim. In other words, we move from nature into an artificial, yet we are naturally and rationally moving toward an aim. Okay? We do this together, right? So as living beings, we move this way as our nature. Okay, so to reduce everything to mere matter is to reduce our knowing of something, right? So we usually only see things, again, in this materialistic way, as raw materials, as potential. That's one of the ways in which we might think of it in terms of modern science, etc. Right? So artificially and naturally, potentiality and slash matter act on their own self-contained principle and movement. Okay, so toward actuality and form, and this is something's telos, right? It's arche. So that's where we get that word. It looks like arches, or excuse me, arche. It's arche. It's structure. Okay, so for Aristotle, we need not prove that nature exists in its evident. It is evident in our experience that it does, right? So in our experience of the way in which we move toward an aim can be thought of as natural. Okay, that's really the long and short of it, is that we move toward our aim by way of our reason, and that aim we'll see is eudaimonia for our ethical lives. Okay, but we could also see that tending toward movement in living things in general, right? A plant rising to the sun, etc. Right? So then we go to the subchapter activity, purpose, and soul. So as van der Schyff illustrates, for Aristotle, the form of that which is natural bears the principle of the arche, okay, of its purpose, its telos. In other words, its aim or purpose, right? So how does this connect to potentiality and actuality, which extends to Aristotle's conception between cause and soul? So it is in Aristotle's physics where we find his famous explanation of the four causes. Okay, so in other words, we need to look at potentiality becoming actuality, right? That's important. And we also need to see the difference and relationship between a cause and a soul, right? A moving toward what is that arche, what is that principle, right? So with the four causes, whenever we ask what is a natural being, is to know its arche, right? Its principle, toward its telos, its aim. Okay? So we ask of what is the being constituted? What is its natural cause? That is, what is it made of? That's the material cause, okay? So then the second we might ask is, what moves it? What is its efficient cause? Okay, that we could think of what or who made it. Okay, so what is its efficient cause has to do with what or who made it. So in the pre-Socratic thinking, we could say that they were concerned with that first cause, the material cause. So then what and who made it might also be that pre-Socratic phase of thinking, of ancient Greek thought. And then we have a third cause, what is it, or what is its formal cause? So that's where we're looking at what is its idea, right? Its function of a thing. What is its plan? What is its plan of organization, right? And that plan of organization could be thought of as this ideal plane where we're accounting for such thinkers as Plato, okay? And that's where we might get into his theory of forms as the ideal sense of what things are. So then for Aristotle, the soul contains both the cause and the principle. So for our soul, de anima, the living principle of being, is our purpose in life. It's our aim toward arete, or excellence, okay? So that one's really cool because that's what's showing us, well, what is our aim in life? What do we aim for? We aim for a purpose in life, right? We aim toward arete and excellence to then achieve eudaimonia, or flourishing life, right? So this Aristotle's view of a natural being is to be understood as self-actualizing in a relationship of matter and form. And so this is our telos and aim too. So even if we have higher order goals, we still have to take care of our bodies and eat healthy food and try to aim toward living healthy so that we could achieve our goals that are loftier than just health, right? So then, or even in terms of our communal lives as well, as extending to the life of politics or the life of helping others and fostering friendships, etc. Right? So the virtuous life is the excellence of matter and form, potentiality to actuality. So we need to be careful with van der Schiff's example of the nutritive soul in the sense. So we need to be careful of van der Schiff's points on what is a nutritive soul, in the sense that to suggest that the food we eat could be seen by Aristotle as the food's aim or its purpose, right? Really, the way we're looking at it is at the same time illustrating that eating food is a way that we have and access potential energy to become healthy enough to carry on with excellence toward eudaimonia, the flourishing life, as reasonable and also as our telos. So we do so rationally. That is our telos. That is our aim as human beings. And I think that that's the combination of perception and reason, but it also takes us to virtue ethics, which is something that we'll look at a little later on, which is also fostered by Aristotle. And it also takes us to that confluence of reason and the way in which we're understanding actuality and potentiality, in the sense that actuality is made possible by the potentiality as well, right? That we need to see how these are interdependent, and yet never fooling ourselves into thinking that we have a complete view. And then likewise, thinking, how is this also thinking of our telos or our aim, taking into consideration what is our purpose? What are we doing here, right? Become something where we could confidently say that, well, it's meant to bring about a sense of flourishing, right? Which is Aristotle's point. All right, so thank you.